Welcome to the Empowered Women Life Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Karen Bashford. This podcast is for every woman who has ever felt limited by her past, silenced by trauma, or held back by society's expectations. Each week, we will share powerful stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you become the leader of your own life.
This week, I have Margie Chavasse. I got it right. Hey! Who is a health detective. Now, I know Margie from my own experience of working with her. First time ever was a problem I had in my shoulder, which turned out to be a parasite. But I had no idea that it was. So I'm hoping, Margie, that you're going to educate us on what parasites, pathogens, and toxicity, can never say the word, means to us and our bodies. So welcome, and you're open to telling us all about it.
Oh, Karen, thank you for the intro. You know, the funny thing is, if somebody starts me talking about parasites, you'll find it very difficult to make me shut up.
Well, we've got 30 minutes, so you're okay.
So yeah, I'm calling myself a health detective. I've trained in nutrition and in kinesiology, which are both alternative methods of looking at your body and considering what might be going on. My own path into kinesiology came 30 plus years ago when my youngest daughter had very bad eczema, and I didn't know what was the matter with her, and eventually I went alternative because I couldn't get the right support that I needed from the doc, and I found somebody who happened to be a kinesiologist. Well, I didn't have a clue what that was. I just wanted a solution for my daughter, and that's what he provided. But one of the things that she had was an overgrowth of candida. Now, candida, some of you might know, is something which lives in the gut normally, but if you feed it, it's a yeast. So if you feed it sugars and Marmite and yeasty type things, it loves it and it grows, and then it escapes from being in the gut and it gets everywhere. So at this point, the candida becomes pathogenic or not good for us, and we need to kind of get the genie back in the bottle to where it wants to be, where it needs to be for our health. So that's how I got into it. But I didn't really understand parasites and the importance of those for another 20 plus years, when I had another daughter who was getting very symptomatic of chronic fatigue. She wasn't diagnosed with chronic fatigue, but she seemed to have that. And I had just started at that point thinking about training as a kinesiologist. And I was on a training and somebody there said, "Have you thought about parasites?" And I went, "Oh, what are you talking about? How many of them? What are there? About 5 of those?" There are hundreds. I mean, I have a list of about 500, but that's not a complete list. There are many, many more that we don't know about. And it was when I realized that my daughter could have a parasite, and I sent her to this girl who became a friend, another kinesiologist, that her life, my daughter's life, sort of turned around. And I realized that the pathogenic parasitic thing was the missing piece. I could do so much with improving people's nutrition and changing their diets and stuff, but I didn't ever feel I was quite nailing it. And the pathogenic part just really did it for me. And I'm going to go off on one a little bit more here, but because to explain why that got me so excited, apart from seeing my daughter getting better, was that I've got quite a sort of logical mind. For many years, I was a chartered accountant. And before that, my degree had been engineering, because I like knowing why things are happening and what's making it happen and how you could perhaps change that route if you think of engineering, moving a bridge or something, how you could make that happen. And that's really what I do now. And so I'm using that sort of forensic analytical bit with all my work that I do with my clients. No two people are the same. So that's how I got into sort of thinking about pathogens, parasites, and toxins. And I find with every client, I treat them as a total individual. I never go to the meeting with preconceived notions of what the problem is, because remarkably, your body knows what's going on, and your body knows what the answer is, which is magic in so many ways. And with the kinesiology and the muscle response testing, which goes with that, I can tap into that energetic level of the body, and I can find out, I can ask it what is going on, and it will oblige and tell me what the answers are. So I never quite know what's going to come up, but 9 times out of 10, a pathogen or a toxin or a parasite will come up in the first session. If it doesn't come up in the first one, it will come up in the second, I can promise you that. But if I take, so what do these things do to us? Well, internally, when things come into us, we should be able to process them. And the liver is the most remarkable organ. It will sort the wheat from the chaff. It will sort out the good stuff. It will chuck out the bad stuff. It takes the proteins that you've eaten and it breaks them all up into little amino acids, the individual building blocks, like doing something in Lego. It takes them all apart, and then it will reconstruct them into the proteins that it needs, and then the body will shoot it off to the places in the body that that particular protein is needed. That's the theory. Okay, so then what you get is the liver, this fantastic wibbly wobbly organ, which is doing 800 different functions throughout the day and night, gets a little bit blocked up. Okay, so once it's got a bit of a sludge in it or something, it's short of some nutrients, so it can't quite work the way it should do, then you get a backlog, a bit like if you were applying for a new passport. They've got a backlog. Okay, so it's not coming out quite as quickly as it should be, and so that flow isn't going through as easily as it should, and therefore you can start feeling sluggish and ill, and the toxins which aren't quite being broken down enough to be shot out through your poop are going recycled into your body, and they can go into your head, and they can go into your joints, and they can go all sorts of places. So we need that organ particularly to really be functioning well. But then, so let's say now we've got a parasite. Okay, so parasites, people think, oh, well, I haven't been to Africa, I won't have a parasite. You know, I don't go abroad, da, da, da. I'm afraid they're endemic everywhere. And many more people have them, and seriously, than they expect. So, so when we get these things, and how do we get them? Okay, so, well, we're all told to wash our hands before meals and make sure our nails are clean and that kind of stuff. And that is really important because some will come that way from the soil and from our environment. But other ones are going to come in on your food, I'm afraid, and you won't know it. And they could be on, dare I say, your cauliflower. They could be on your spinach. I get them quite regularly from watercress. We've got a lovely watercress farm around here, but they often have flukes which come free. So the fluke comes into you, and some of them will get killed off by the stomach acid. Some might go a bit deeper. Fortunately, I'll know that this is happening to me. I know what the remedy is that works for me. So I'll be able to take that and bish, bash, bosh, they're done. But what I'm trying to say is that they can come from all sorts of places. It doesn't matter whether it's organic or not organic food, you can still be catching a little parasite. Now, most of them should get killed when you eat them by your stomach acid. That stomach acid is so acid, such a low pH, that it could, if you ate a stainless steel screw, it should dissolve it, right? It is really, really acid, should be. But a lot of people are taking PPIs, which are proton pump inhibitors. That makes the pH in the stomach higher, more alkaline, and then it won't kill those parasites, right?
Okay.
So now, and also as we age, it tends to be that the stomach acid gets less strong. Now, what I'm not sure about is whether that's because older people have got a whole backlog of things which are built up, or whether it is actually seriously a function of aging. I don't know. But assume that your stomach acid possibly is getting less, so the pH is going up. It's getting more alkaline in there, and things aren't necessarily working quite as well as they should be. So then, if you get a parasite, what's it going to do? Well, now my thought used to be that it will then get swallowed, it will go into your digestive tract, and eventually it will just get pooped out. Or it might cling in there on the gut lining. The sad thing is it doesn't. It can escape from there and it can go anywhere. So I, many years ago, broke my wrist. And sometimes that can be quite achy. And I know that could very well be a position where parasites can go, because that's not working as well as it did originally. So if you've had breaks or sprains or damage in various parts of your body, that is where a parasite might like to go to lurk, because it's the flow of body fluids, lymph and blood isn't as good. So it's not going to keep washing it out as well as it could. So the nasty little beastie can sit in there.
Okay, so I have some questions for you.
Super.
The first one is, when you talk about parasites, for me, the first word that come into mind when you were talking about parasite, is a ringworm a parasite?
Ringworm, well, ringworm is actually a fungal thing.
Okay.
Which comes on the skin. But so in that case, I'd probably call it a pathogen
Okay.
rather than a parasite. Yes.
Okay. So tell me an example of an actual parasite. What does it look like even? You know, you say we don't necessarily know we're ingesting them. So
you wouldn't see them. Okay, so there are a number of different classes of parasite. And at the big end, you'll have a worm. So a lot of kids will have had worms, and their parents will have seen them in the stools and given them a treatment to get rid of those. Okay, so that's a little wriggly worm, which is fairly obvious. Along with worms, you can get flukes, which are like a worm which has been flattened, but it looks a little bit like a leaf, but not the size of a leaf. I mean, mini. And then you can get longer filamental type of worms as well.
Okay.
So that's one sort of type. And then you can get a hookworm, which you'll never see, and it has a little hook on the top. So it hooks onto you and stays there. And so then it's like the seaweed you might see down at the sea. So it's holding on and the water comes around and feeds the seaweed. Hookworm, same kind of thing. So you're eating your stuff, your food, and it's going down here, and it goes past the hookworm, and it's sort of moving around, but held on tight to the wall, and you're feeding it very nicely. Thank you. But then at the very other end, you'll get the amoeba type ones, and they're single-celled protozoa. Okay, so a single cell, you probably couldn't even see it with a microscope.
Really?
I mean, yeah, it's so tiddly widdly widdly widdly. Okay, but they can proliferate and be really annoying.
So how do they get from the gut then into the other parts of your body? Because do they go through the gut lining or what?
Good question. So the gut is actually one cell thick.
Really? Oh God.
One cell thick. But on the inside, so if that is your gut lining wall, one cell thick, inside it's like, this isn't to scale. You've got a mucous membrane, some mucal stuff there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is really important to look after, because that's like, if you like, that's like putting Vaseline on something. It makes it quite sort of slidey, and protects that single cell wall lining.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what your good microbiome will eat some of. Okay, so there's good nutrients in there for that. But also it can get damaged by the bad microbes. So if yeah, so let's say it starts getting damaged by the bad microbes. So then it gets thinner and thinner and thinner. So you've got less protection on between the cells. Now then, if you think cells are, again, go back to the Lego analogy. When you've put two pieces of Lego together, you can still see a little gap. And that's the same with our cells. So there's still a little gap there.
Okay.
And so there should be, because at that particular part in the digestion, that's where little bits of your digested food and the nutrients are supposed to go through the lining into the bloodstream, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, if you've got a bad gut, IBS or something like that, and that mucus layer has got devalued, this is not going to feel so good either, and those gaps can get bigger. And gluten is one of those things which actually makes the gaps get bigger. And then you will have bigger molecules than should getting through at this point. Now that one that's so big should have been either degraded further and made smaller, or it should be something which is dealt with lower down in the gut. So it shouldn't be coming out here. So now when that comes out, it can then get into your bloodstream, go around the bloodstream and cause lots of aches and pains, because the body now sees this larger than should be molecule in there, and it's going, oh, it's an invader, and it starts the immune response to that invader. I mean, it's just an invader because it's wearing the wrong cloak. You know, if it had been degraded a bit smaller and hadn't got out that bit, it wouldn't necessarily have been an invader. So that's where you might get a whole lot of inflammation from, and a lot of tummy problems or gut problems. And that is when those gaps get too big, or even, you know, when I'm talking about the amoeba type protozoa, the single cell, they can just sweep through there. They can get through.
So they just go to wherever is most appropriate for them. There's no specific area that they would go to. It's just where they land up, basically, I presume.
Yes. Some are very inclined to go to. I'm thinking of one particular lot, which like going to the liver. But I have in my experience, reckon that they are not restricted to the liver. They will get in other places as well. So yeah.
How do people have any idea that they might have a parasite or a pathogen in some way? How can they tell?
I would say if they have had some niggling problem, probably for a number of years, and they've tried all sorts of things, but they can't quite find out what it is, can't quite put their finger on it, then I would say I would be looking at the parasites and the pathogens and the toxins. When the doctors will do it, and you can pay for an expensive test to have stool, well, some doctors will, to have a stool test done, and they look for pathogenic or parasites. And I saw one the other day which was boasting that they now look for 8 different parasites. Well, I've already told you there are hundreds. And so that's great if one of those 8 probably more common ones are spotted, but there's an awful lot which might not be spotted. And that is something, again, I learned many, many years ago when I was first starting out in this. And I got a lovely client to spend a lot of money on such a test. And I was certain this was the gold standard. And it came back with no parasites. She was riddled. She had a lot of them. And I don't blame her at all. She went off to somebody else who told her she had a whole lot. But then that person was a more experienced kinesiologist than me at that time. And so if somebody gets a clear test like that, I'm going, great. But there are far too many false negatives, particularly with Lyme disease. I mean, that's one where I would say the tests that the NHS do for Lyme disease, I'd say, is a waste of money. Because it's
interesting. So Lyme's disease comes from rats, doesn't it? If I'm correct.
It comes from mostly from tick bites, but not only. You can get it from a scratch as well. I mean, it's just the bacteria has been lurking around, and you get scratched, and whoops, in it goes. Yeah.
Okay. So a question for you, perhaps for the ladies watching this or listening to this. How much are parasites or pathogens likely to be impacted, or how much will they impact a woman who's going through the menopause?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I would say, right, so there are 2 parts, 2 sort of different ways of looking at this. One is that parasites can influence your behavior, right? They will be, this isn't an excuse, anybody, but they can be making you want to go to the fridge and eat something sweet. They can be feeding you the lines to make you do and eat the stuff which they want to eat, right? They can cause big anxiety. They can cause stress and panic. They can cause an awful lot of behavioral things. It's not because they're in your brain, it's because your brain and your gut are very connected, or your body and your, all you've got in between is here. And anyway, these 2 parts of you are wholly connected. So that's one thing. And then you get the hormones kicking in, and that is going to upset the balance again more, you know, that awful swing of, and you can't even get into the rhythm. It's like being in an unpleasantly choppy sea. You just can't get into the rhythm of what's going to be happening next with your hormones. And so that will amplify So I would say each of those two events will amplify the other problem. Now, if you think that most of the people I deal with parasites, I've just helped somebody who was written off by the NHS for they'd run out of ideas of how to help him. Anyway, I reckoned it was a parasite. We've been treating him for parasites. He is so much better. It's unbelievable. And he had had that for 25 years. Right. So, and then a lot of other people will have had their parasite there for decades. So if you're having a hard menopause, again, I would look at detoxifying. No, not detoxifying like just cutting out certain foods, but working with somebody like me to work out whether you should be taking down the heavy metals, whether you've got pathogens, you know, and all these things work together. I must talk about that bit. They all work together. So you need to take down the toxicity inside you, and that will then help you deal with the hormone fluctuation. So I reckon the people who have the most difficult perimenopause period are those who actually have the worst toxic burdens.
You're generating something that I feel is very, very important,
right,
going forward. So we've talked about parasites and you've explained. Now, I think very few of the listeners will be aware of the impact of heavy metals. Now, I know, having worked with you and knowing that my mercury, I was allergic to the mercury fillings that I had. So even though they were removed effectively and protected me as much as possible, I also knew that my body had that heavy metal from the mercury, which seeps out all the time into our system. I knew that was a problem for me because of being allergic to it, and having had the fillings out, my body was indicating there was a problem. So I could take my own choices into account and take action on it. But so many women and men do not know about heavy metals. So could you explain a bit more about that?
So yes, it's an interesting, so with toxins, metals are put in with toxins a little bit, and toxins, we're in a toxic soup all the time, and we can't help it. We have to help ourselves with being able to detox these things and stop them from damaging us. Now you'll find anybody who dies from dementia will have heavy metal toxicity in their brains. Now, unfortunately, it's one of those things you can find out at an autopsy, but not while the person's alive. So my thoughts would always be that you've got to make sure you are keeping on top or dialing down the level you've already got to being a good level. Now, we get the toxins from, it might be the farmer spraying the fields, or it might be a car going past with bad exhaust. It could be from using scented room fresheners, or from the various scents which are in cleaning products. A lot of those can be really, really toxic to us. And the issue is that they bioaccumulate in the body. So last time I talked about the importance of the liver and how that works as a detox central, okay? And if it's not working well, then you can get a backlog. But if you keep on filling up the bath and it starts overflowing, you've got to pull the plug out and do something. There's no point in just keeping mopping the floor. You've got to pull the plug out, turn off the taps, and mop the floor, right? So there's a number of things one needs to do. So the heavy metals in particular, they can be from your, as you mentioned, from the metal fillings. So you and I are of an age where we would go to the dentist and they were paid, I think, probably on the number of fillings they did, because boy, oh boy, did they get their drills out. And then fill them with this toxic stuff. And no, it's fine. But and they, possibly it was fine to start off with, but as they age, then you get this gas coming off them that crosses through the blood-brain barrier, which is supposed to be a big protection, and it goes into the brain, and then it can get make you feel very foggy-headed. The way I found out about that, you know, was before I even trained doing this, and I was working as an accountant, and I found that my head, I just felt like I was in a total and utter fug. I had 3 smallish children, so I put a lot of it down to them. And after a bit, I thought, just no, this is not right. And then I thought, I think actually one of my fillings is cracked. No sort of internet or anything really to search these things up on. And I went and got it out, had it taken out and a white one put in. And I began to feel better. Now, I've always eaten a reasonably good diet, so that will have helped to get the heavy metal out. But it was a real lesson to me. I thought I was going mad, frankly. The mercury toxicity. Oh, and you know the story Alice in Wonderland with the Mad Hatter, and the Mad Hatter being just a bit mad, obviously. But he made hats, and the way they used to cure the hats was using mercury. So actually, that is based on truth. The mercury was making the Mad Hatter mad. So don't underestimate mercury. And there is, I'll tell you a good way of reducing mercury, because it is such an endemic problem for people, is stuff called chlorella, tiny little green pills, and you can get them on the internet. Make sure they're from a decent source. I can let you know a decent source if you want one. Anyway, you take a lot of those. If you think you've got heavy metal, you need to take, like, probably, it depends how large you are, but you probably want to take about 20 twice a day for a while. And that is wonderful, because the heavy metal sticks into it, and then the chlorella is it's a binder, so, and then you poop it out. Great, absolutely fantastic. But you're taking the heavy, you're mobilizing the heavy metal, you're getting it stuck to something, and then you're pooping it out. So it's safe. What you don't want to do, mobilize the mercury and then not get it stuck to something and let it wander around, because it will go and wander elsewhere and get stuck somewhere else, and you do not need that. So you've got to, if you're going to mobilize it, you need to make sure you're doing it with plenty of chlorella, really seriously.
I was surprised actually, because I thought, I know, as I say, I know I'm allergic to mercury, so having them removed was amazing. And even now my body is still responding to the fact that I've had them for such a long time. But I didn't realize also the white fillings they used to use is full of toxins as well. I didn't know that. I thought, oh, well, I've had some of them out. At least I'm doing all right with having white fillings. But actually, my dentist said that the old type white fillings were just as toxic as mercury in their own way. And it was like, oh, okay.
Well, you know, it's so difficult. I would say that they would be better than mercury, because the mercury filling didn't only have mercury, they had other heavy metals in as well. And I will find toxicity. Somebody might not have the mercury toxicity, but they might have some other metals toxicities. And those might also have come from the fillings. I mean, the only answer is to start life again and make sure you brush your teeth properly.
Don't go, no, I won't say don't go to the dentist, because we need to go to the dentist for obvious reasons.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They can pick up things like cancer and things like that, so we do need to go. But as you say, if you look after your teeth and you're young enough to look after them still and not have the experience that a lot of us older women have had, there's no reason for you to need those feelings. And it's okay to question why you're being given those fillings as well. My dentist was brilliant with me, because there's one tooth that has a crack in it, but not severe enough to need to be, basically if she drilled it out, it would probably fall out. So it was a case of, okay, so can we just repair and let me hold on to it for as long as possible? Now, at other dentists, I did go to another dentist, and their whole attitude is, we will just pull them all out. Actually, having your teeth removed is not necessarily as good for your body as a lot of people think. Oh, well, if we just have them removed, that's fine. Because obviously the teeth are there for a reason, but also I've since discovered that every tooth can relate to an organ in our body. So if you're yanking something out that connects to an organ, even though it's not actually impacting that organ as such, energetically it's impacting the body. So that's something I'm quite horrified about, that people just go to the dentist, and some dentists will just say, oh, we'll take them out and give you replacements.
I'm going to tell you another thing about heavy metals, is that last time we mentioned Candida and the fact Candida should live in your gut, blah, blah. The Candida actually it can work for us, right? So it can tie up 10 times its weight of heavy metals. So if you just have got a Candida problem and you start dealing with the Candida, you are going to release those heavy metals if you're not taking a binder like chlorella, and those heavy metals are going to go elsewhere, and you're just going to have to hope they don't land up somewhere where you don't want them. So the Candida works with the heavy metals and can be supporting you. Candida gets out of control. But why is it getting out of control? Is it actually because you've got an awful lot of mercury floating around? So and then you get the parasites, which work with those, and the other pathogens, the viruses, the fungi, the bacteria, and they all work together, and they all create themselves this lovely little like putting a shell around the outside of them, which makes them impenetrable to antibiotics and things like that. So so a lot of remedies might not work. So this is again why you need to work with somebody who has some experience here of being able to penetrate that shell and get the things out in a safe order, right? Because otherwise you could just be letting the cat out of the box and get all sorts of problems. But yeah, metals will stick in your joints. They definitely affect your head. So they'll be part of the dementia story. Pathogens, parasites will also be of various different sizes, might also be in the brain. Not very, very seldom is it worms, but it can be the single cell jobbies and molds and those kind of things. Yeah.
So basically, if somebody is experiencing a health issue and they've been to the doctors and the doctors tried all they can to find out the cause of it, or have given them a load of tablets and don't seem to be helping, it's just creating more and more. Because I know from experience, when you're given a tablet, there's a knock-on impact, because everyone is so different, and the type of tablets and all the rest of it. So if you're continually finding you're receiving even more tablets for the next problem that's come up from the tablets you've started taking, it's going to be worthwhile finding somebody like yourself who can physically check through energetic connections what's really going on in the body, which could then resolve, or at least help, the body adjust to whatever issues have been going on. So how does somebody, I don't know how to put this because it sounds a bit weird. Like, mind you, I am weird, so we don't worry about that. But I'm almost sensing, how do you say to a doctor, I want more tests, when they're reluctant to do those tests?
Well, I think it would be really difficult to go to a doctor and ask them for the right tests. How do you know what the right test is? If you don't know what the problem is yourself, how are you going to be able to say to the doctor, I want more tests, when there's this, you're almost throwing a dart at a board. I think I would find it very difficult. How do you know, unless you've already I think I don't know how you do it, but I personally, I'm just somebody who just doesn't quite take no as an answer. But I wouldn't know what to ask the doctor for. Funnily enough, you put me in front of a doctor and I turn it into a quivering wreck, and he says, do this, and I go, okay.
Yes, I can understand that. Yeah. It takes a lot of courage to turn around to a doctor and say, I don't think so. I do know that one, because I did that when I was poisoned with antibiotics, and it was like, okay, well, we've caused this problem, so now we're solving it with this, and it was like, no. You've caused the problem, so why would I want to extend the problem? I'm taking back responsibility. And
I just have to say that antibiotics really, 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 really do have their place. And
I'm not condoning them.
Okay.
It was just unfortunate that the number that was prescribed were way too many for what should have been. So it was a pure medical mispractice.
I see.
And that happens a lot, unfortunately. A lot of people do not realise quite how much that happens. But it's no reflection on the NHS or the doctors. It's just they are so busy that, and in any aspect of life, we make mistakes. So I don't condone antibiotics. For me, they're a no now, because my body just can't cope with them. But no, if somebody's gone to the doctor and they've suggested having antibiotics, by all means take them. But you can work holistically with antibiotics. And that's something I think that we need to be aware of more, that doctors are great, but there's other ways of actually being responsible for your own health.
And taking responsibility for yourself, I think, is absolutely vital. And I'm thinking that your people on here are people who are willing to challenge and go, this isn't good enough for me, and so I'm going to keep digging. I'm going to keep finding and looking. And
it's not. It's like I approached you because I knew there was something going on in my body. And I feel that the awareness of recognizing when the body is out of balance, whether, as you say, with the candida, it's like encouraging you to eat more sweet things. That if you've always had a sweet tooth, you need to question anyway why you've got that sweet tooth, because that would indicate you've been eating a lot of sugar and your body has got used to that sugar and is seeking it, because, as we know, sugar is addictive. So it's recognizing and taking action. How do people approach you?
Most people find me through word of mouth, because I've helped people, or they've mostly kind of got to the end of their tether. They know they've got things wrong, don't know what it is. They might have had tests, and they're not somebody who particularly wants to take no for an answer. They want to shift things, and just won't stay still and accept that this is what it is. So people find me through the internet as well, on Google search, and I'm also on LinkedIn, so some people might come to me that way. Mostly it's word of mouth though.
Okay, so What would be the last thing you want to say to the listeners about their health?
I would say take responsibility for your health and question what you're not happy with. And then see if you can see a pattern with that. And then find a practitioner who might be able to help you with a lot of things come in through emotional trauma that we might have had, and that can have been from when you were 4, it could have been from when you were 24, and any other date. And these things sit with us, and they don't have to be majorly traumatic, but they might be. But they set up a resonance in us, and we need somebody sometimes to be to help us park that resonance so that it's quiet and doesn't change the event, but it changes the way you react to the event. And so if that seems to be a common thing in your life, then it's important to work out how to address that. I do a lot of work with the emotion side of people, but there are loads of other people as well. And I would, it's more than conversation. In fact, I don't even need to know the background of a particular situation. You know it, your body knows it. I tap into that, and I'm being your conduit, and we can resolve that situation for you. So that is a number one, because if you've got that rolling around, you are not going to be able to deal with a lot of other stuff. And in fact, sometimes that will make you cling on to toxicity. So that can help you cling on to the parasites so that the remedy isn't so easy to make work. If you've had, for somebody's health, if you've had issues and you've been given a label like IBS or SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, something like that. So you've got these digestive issues, you've got reflux all the time. Bear in mind what you're being told. Are you being given a label for it, for the symptoms, so that is the symptom box called IBS? Or is it going into a box which is called cause, which might be an allergy to gluten, or it might be a parasitic thing, or one of those things? So distinguish between whether what you are going through life with is a symptom, or really whether it's actually you know what the cause is. Okay, and then you can start doing something about it. So it's about making yourself more aware of it. We are all watching, listening to this, and we all seem to be human beings, but we've all got here through completely different routes with completely different experiences. We even look vaguely the same, but we are quite different energetically. Well, mostly we're the same, but you know, there are those differences, the bells and whistles, if you like, on all our characters, which make us different and make us react to things differently. So it's taking control of yourself.
Yeah, well, basically, we're a human being, but we've got different aspects to ourselves that are so different from everyone else. Yeah, we've got a liver, we've got a heart, we've got some lungs, and we've got a brain, but we are all so different because everything interacts together in its own way. And if there's an underlying issue that can have an impact on another part of the body, that's going to create a different sort of scenario that you're facing that isn't the same as anyone else. So yeah. Well, thank you very much, Margie. It's been fascinating. I certainly have learned a lot, even from just this conversation, having known you and spoken to you quite a few times and having worked with you. I've certainly learned more than I knew before. So thank you very much. I will share your details, and I'm sure you will generate quite a bit of interest because people are taking more responsibility for their health. So thank you.
I hope so. I have a newsletter which goes out every week. So if anybody would like to join that, they just need to contact me through the contact details you'll send out, and we can add them to the list. And there are always useful little bits of information on those. Every time you'll learn something.
Thank you.
All right. Lovely to talk to you, Karen. Thank you very much indeed.